What is up, guys? It is your boy Ansioso7 here, and welcome back to the Why School is Stupid series. If you haven't checked out part 1 of this series yet, then you may as well do that. There'll be an end card at the end of this video, so you can go click on that to go take you back to part 1. But anyways, moving on to part 2, we are going to probably move on to the most predictable thing that I'm going to talk about. The academics and the quote-unquote main part of school, learning, because that's what you do in school. You learn, you get bored, and all the schoolwork and all that tests and projects and exams and all that jazz, and everybody hates it. I don't think I've met a single person in my life that genuinely enjoys all schoolwork and projects. There are some aspects of schoolwork that some may like some assignments might not be that bad and kind of fun, or some projects, but when it comes down to it, most people that I've talked to, actually not all people I've talked to, do not like schoolwork or projects or any stuff like that, or really any academical stuff at all. And so let's talk about that stuff. So I kind of already talked about tests, projects, and exams. I guess I'll get this out of the way first off, because tests, projects, and exams are stupid. Why? Because honestly, let me just paint a picture for you. It's one day before the test, and you somewhat know about the stuff that you've been studying so far. Then you go and then you realize that you need to actually study for the test the next day. So what do? You cram. But here's the thing about cramming for an exam. Or test or whatever. You don't actually really learn anything. Just when you're going through flashcards of definitions and words and all that stuff, or various terminology and stuff like that, you're not really learning it. You're just memorizing it for the test. So you're not really learning anything, which they say the point of school is to learn. But you're not learning when you just go over flashcards. You're just kind of memorizing it, especially in this case. And then the next day comes around and you do that test. And then afterwards you get your test results back and you get an F. And this is probably one of the biggest things that school actually really doesn't explain very well, is the concept of failure. Because here's the thing, in school, failure is seen as not doing well and just being, sucking at completely everything that you were supposed to do for a given assignment or whatever. But the thing is, failure is actually when you just don't do well at something. But the thing is, failure is supposed to help you get better. Because if we were all perfect at everything, then it'd be kind of boring, wouldn't it? Then we wouldn't really be able to get better at anything. But with failure, you're able to improve yourself. Unfortunately, when it comes to school, this doesn't work necessarily very well, because eventually parents will see that grade and they'll deal with it in varying ways with varying effects. Heck, even to some possible extreme cases which don't really teach the child anything. Because when the child receives an F, they're not thinking, oh, I got an F on this, well, that means I have to improve next time. More than likely, especially the older you get, when you get an F on a test, you're more likely thinking, well, I guess I just suck at it, and that's that. So it doesn't really do anything good. It's not really motivational to get an F. It's more so seen as defeat as anything. Partially because of the fact that people may not care at all about the stuff that you're doing during the class. Which probably brings me to one of the bigger issues. What you learn in school. Most of the stuff you learn in school is absolutely worthless after elementary school. I will admit elementary school is important because you need to learn simple mathematics. But once you get into high school and you have to start learning algebra, calculus, all this crap, none of it you're ever going to use in your life, unless you go for that specific career path of being a mathematician. And that's the thing. I'm not necessarily saying all this stuff is necessarily useless in every single case. If you want to be a scientist, then you're going to have to do well in actually your science classes, and they'll actually matter to you. But for most people, actually almost everyone that I know, they don't really want to be this historian or person who can teach multiple languages. No one wants to be like that. So it's the stuff you learn in school, you're going to forget it as soon as you can. Math is probably the biggest case of this because it's just so useless. The most useless thing ever. English class. What is English really for? Like, I guess it gets your writing better, but it doesn't really matter how much you improve. It just has to be good enough for the standard. You can improve your writing a hell of a lot, but you'll probably still get a 75 on the project essay. So that's real great. Oh yeah, also screw essays. Those things are annoying as hell, especially when you have to stretch them out for multiple pages. Really? But anyways, English class, pretty pointless, honestly. Science, pretty boring unless you actually want to be a scientist or anything in that field. Otherwise, it's pretty useless. Social studies or history, pretty useless because honestly, we don't need to spend all this time learning about stuff like, oh, what like the ancient Egyptians did, because yeah, that stuff totally relates to history. They say that history is important because it'll help shape our future. But what the hell is the Egyptians and like any like really ancient civilizations? What is that going to really do to teach us how to act going forward? I feel like the only points where history is actually helpful and actually worth a damn is when they teach about stuff like World War II. And this is partially because of the fact that World War II, in my opinion, is one of the most interesting points of human history ever. And like anything like regarding that sort of stuff like 9/11, like some of the other wars, some other big things that happened in history, that stuff matters because that's the sort of stuff that we don't want to repeat, because the point is to not repeat history. Okay, there's that. But unfortunately, most history classes don't really cover that sort of stuff. They might cover it slightly in certain cases, but most of the time when it comes to general history classes, they'll just teach you about a bunch of random stuff that happened thousands of years ago that you have absolutely no care for. So there's that. World languages. I've never gotten the hang of world languages. It's just, you learn another language. Cool. There's actually this thing that exists. It's called Google Translate. And despite what world language teachers will tell you, Google Translate is much better than you'd actually think it is. While yes, it's not 100% accurate, it does get a lot of stuff accurate. For like sentences, it works really well. But I know. And while language speaking can be important if you leave the US, I mean, you're gonna need enough money to get out of school, the US, so there's that. And you could just stick in the US or whatever country you do live in with your native language. It's one thing to learn one language, your native language, but it's like to learn another language is kind of pointless, honestly, because honestly, even after taking 4 Spanish classes in high school and some of them in middle school, I still don't know Spanish that well. In fact, I've mostly forgotten almost everything. Once again, going back to what I said before, because that's kind of the one thing I want to really talk about. The fact that the stuff you learn is so pointless because you're going to forget it. Every single year when a term is done or when this school year is finally over, everything I learned from that year just goes away. Like I may keep like a few things in my brain. Otherwise, all of it goes into the trash bin because none of this stuff actually is really going to help me that much anyways. And that's the main problem with school, is that it just is so boring and so pointless and it doesn't help you enough. You're not going to use enough of this stuff in real life. Now, there is one thing I will give credit, and that is electives. Electives do allow you to choose classes that you do prefer. And that does work well. But honestly, I felt that I've never gotten enough classes that are tailored to my interests. So I kind of had to pick some random classes for electives just because I don't have enough classes that I want to take. So there's that. But honestly, electives aren't actually that bad because that's where you can kind of get more of your interests. Kind of sucks that all of school couldn't be like that. Otherwise, it would have actually made school a little bit more helpful. But to finally move on to the last piece of this video, the schoolwork and the homework. Now, I am not a person who had to deal with that much homework at all in high school or middle school. Okay, elementary school I did have to deal with it, but homework is absolutely pointless and useless and just a waste of time. Because think about this. You're going to school for 7 to 8 hours each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you get homework. Like, okay, school wasn't enough. You need to have homework. That's real nice. Usually they'll even assign like projects as well, which projects can vary in terms of how good they are. Some of them aren't actually that bad, and there's others that make me want to actually crawl up into a hole and die. But getting back to like the schoolwork and homework, doing homework at home, it's such a waste of time because if you don't care about it, you'll more than likely just skim over a lot of it. And of course, homework has to be stuff that will take at least some time because it's not just random multiple choice questions or whatever. You gotta read something and you gotta like fill in the blanks or write out some sentences. And it's like that's when you just kind of shut eye and you just go into autopilot and just don't care and just don't do it. And you wonder why a lot of people don't do their homework in middle school and high school, especially high school, because believe it or not, contrary to what people believe, high schoolers actually have life outside of school. They have relationships they gotta deal with, their own free time, working a job. They've got other and even like other stuff regarding school, like clubs, activities, sports. Like, they got stuff to do. They don't have all this time just to waste their time on stupid, pointless homework. So, to hell with that. And schoolwork can just be annoying anyways because it's just kind of pointless. Like, I understand taking what you learn and, like, using it for the schoolwork, but it's like, that's the only time you're ever going to use the stuff you learn anyways. Which then brings the question, why are we learning this stuff if we're just going to forget it within a month? I just don't understand. Like, seriously. 8 hours a day, but it's still not enough. We got to do all this other crap. But anyways, that's pretty much all I really want to say on this. Overall, the academic parts of school are possibly the worst part of school. Honestly, it really does depend on your experience. You might hate the academics much more than the social life aspect. Your social life might be the worst part of school instead of the academics. It really does depend, but there's no denying that academics are dumb and pointless, and most importantly, a huge waste of me and everyone's time. I understand that school's a business, but you can't just do this to us, which I'll get into that a little bit more late in the next part. But anyways, I'm going to end this here. Case closed. School academics are pointless and boring and wastes of time. But let me know in the comment section if you guys agree. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was fairly predictable because everybody knows this stuff, but it still needs to be said. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're brand new. And tune in to next time when we finally wrap up this 3-part series by comparing school to prison.